Jai Meher Baba to all of you. The theme of our Q&A is the future with Meher Baba. And this morning, Peter Nordin mentioned something that struck me. He said that in the early years, if somebody criticized one of the other members of the Mandali, Meher Baba would bow down to them. And in order for us to maintain harmony in the Meher Baba community worldwide, it's very important not to be critical of each other, but to be loving and giving and serving. I think the habit of backbiting and criticism is a very self-destructive habit that all of us imbibe over a period of our lifetimes. And Meher Baba has termed backbiting as a cardinal sin. So I'm starting off with this subject, that in order for us to grow as Baba lovers, it's very important to live harmoniously with each other, have our meetings in a harmonious way in our centers and our homes, and be open to asking for forgiveness if inadvertently we backbite or criticize others. So, having said that, I'd like to open up the floor to questions that may have popped up in your head. And please stand up, say your name, and address the question to the individual panelist. You're familiar with all the panelists here: Alan Cohen, Gohar Mobed, Jimmy Khan, and Peter Nordin. So please feel free to ask questions and direct it to the individual you want the person to answer.
I'm wondering if you could actually do a first question.
Okay. I'm going to, she suggested that I kick off with the first question and leave it open to the panelists or whoever wishes to answer. My question that pops in my head at this very minute is, how do you sustain your love for Baba day after day in your daily life? That would be my question.
I'll start off. To begin with, to think as many times in a day that I can, remembering Meher Baba. Directly and indirectly, loving Meher Baba. And I have certain patterns laid down in my daily life as the way I remember Meher Baba. And one of them could be very comical for you, but it's very serious for me. I heat up my tea and coffee in the micro, and I set maybe, let's say, 1 minute. So it starts with 60, 59, 58. And as if I'm watching the TV, I watch this micro screen. And as it goes number down, I say, Baba, 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 till it comes down to the last number. So it's kind of a meditation in front of the microwave. But instead of wasting my time just looking like an idiot, I say Baba's name. So that's point number one. Point number two, when I get up in the morning, it's also kind of loving Baba. I'm answering Nosh's question directly. When I get up in the morning and I sit up, I say, thank you, Baba. As I leave my house for work, I say, thank you, Baba. Why do I do this? What is this thank you, Baba for? I would not get up in the morning and sit up in my bed if I was not well. If I was ill, if I was in hospital, I may not be able to do that. I may not be able to sit up in the morning. If I'm leaving my house with my papers for work for the day, that means I'm healthy. I'm healthy to be able to get out of my house for my work, for my day's work. So thank you, Baba. The moment I sit on my desk in the morning, the first thing, I get things off my hands, take out Baba's photograph. I always carry 1 or 2 Baba photos in my top pocket. I put it on my desk, just at peace with myself for half a minute, 1 minute. Then I put it back and I start my work. This is loving Baba, because in whatever you do, whatever I do, I think of him, I'm with him, and get on with my work. When I drive in Mumbai, it's either me driving or the driver driving. In India, we have a lot of chauffeurs and drivers that drive for us. So if I'm driving, my music system is on. It's always Baba's CD. So Baba's in front of you, Baba at the back of your mind, Baba. You are hearing Baba's songs, music and so on. If driver is driving, my eyes are shut. I can't handle the traffic. I can't handle the traffic, so I'm at peace with myself. My eyes are shut. The music is on. And I'm with my beloved.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So by and large, yeah.
As long as the driver doesn't get a heavy dose of Baba from the music.
Okay. I'll share with you how my day goes somewhat. In the morning when I first get up, I sit in bed, very similar to Jimmy, and I say to Baba, Baba, I entrust my every thought, word, and deed to you. And with that, I begin my day. As I'm going through the day, I think of him, oh, so many times. He just comes to me. He's always with me. He's in every situation. It's either a thank you, Baba, or I love you, Baba, or something that will remind me about him, and he'll just come to me and be with me. While I'm cooking, I'll have some music on and I'll be thinking of Baba. Baba, come cook with me, I will say, and then I'll proceed to cook. So goes my day, and then at night, finally when I go to sleep, the last thing I do is I say a prayer, and my first thought is, Baba, I thank you for everything that has occurred in my life today and always. I also then follow it with a prayer for all those who are suffering in this world, and I ask for his patience, his guidance, his help, his strength and support for all who need it. And I end with, Baba, I submit my every thought, word, and deed to you. And that's the end of my day. And I'll tell you, it has helped me all these, I've been doing it for years and years now. And it just, in a moment, like if I'm driving and say an animal or something runs across the road at the last second, Baba, all of it, just the first word out of my mouth is Baba. And in so many situations, or if I'm about to hit something, for instance, I'll say Baba, and nothing will happen. Perfectly safe. So.
Thank you, Gohar. Yesterday I talked about the tremendous importance of Meher Baba's name. And this is a true story. Some of you may have heard the name of Ilcha Mistry. He was my uncle and Baba's court jester. He had an amazing sense of humor, and Baba would always keep him around him during the tough seclusion days because he would make Baba laugh a lot. And with absolutely crazy stories and things like that. So he used to live in the foothills of Himachal Pradesh, in a place called Shimla, which was always, in winter, it had snowed very heavily in Shimla. One day he was driving in the snow and his Jeep took a tumble over the cliff, and it rolled many times over, and the only word that came out from his mouth was Meher Baba. And at that moment, he felt a hand from nowhere come and cushion his fall. Just Baba's name, and he brushed himself and went on, got into his Jeep and went off. And that is the power of Meher Baba's name. That is the power of Meher Baba's name. His name is very important, to repeat his name. Gohar mentioned the prayer that she says in the morning and night. Though that prayer was given by Meher Baba.
Yes.
I dedicate my thoughts, words and deeds, both good and bad, to you. In the morning and in the evening. I say that myself every single day.
Yes. Yes.
Did you have to? Did you want to?
My role model in this was Adi Sr. And I once asked him, I said, Adi, what's the secret of remembering Baba and loving Baba? How do you do it? And he looked at me as if he were insulted. He said, what are you talking? How can I possibly be trying to remember Baba when Baba is always here? You know, it was like, that was the flash. It's like, and he's my model. I've never gotten there, but that there's not a difference between us and him. Who is remembering who? It's Baba remembering himself. So the question is, the original thing, and again, this is aspiration, not achievement. Who is sustaining our love for Baba? Not us. It's him. So, in that sense, along with these wonderful clues for asking for Baba's divine energy, it's a great game to see what he's up to in our life at any moment. He's always teaching. It's an ashram. This is an ashram. Doesn't look like an ashram in the West, but it is. He is chopping away at the ego. So it may be possible, as I'm sure it was Adi's experience, that every occurrence could be related to what Baba was trying to do at a particular time. And as Noshawan said, with that consciousness, you don't dare backbite. Now, if you want to get rid of some sanskaras and encourage other people to backbite, I don't know, that's probably not in the rules either. But it's, you know, it's his game, and I love the idea that every moment is a teaching moment, that he's always there. He's not never there. In a certain sense, he doesn't have to be called. On the other hand, saying his name and thinking of them really helps the environment. Human and otherwise.
Yes. Did you want to?
Yes. On the subject of backbiting, you know, the one thing we ought to remember, besides not backbiting, because then we're doing people's dirty laundry, as Baba explains, is that when others backbite us, they're doing our dirty laundry, and then he said we should thank them. But we immediately squirm, we're uncomfortable, so we hear somebody said something. Better to let it be. Remember always that they're doing us a great favor, and that immediately disarms the situation. Who cares? That's one thing. About love, loving Baba, you know, Padre is my guru. I remembered one incident where somebody asked Padre once about love and loving Baba. He said, don't ask me about love. I don't know anything. Go and ask those people at Marazad. I only know what to do. The work that Baba has given me, I do with my own two hands, Baskalas.
Baskalas. So So typical Padre.
But, of course, we're responding to Baba's love. That's what we're doing. We can't say, I love Baba even. What Padre meant is he had no authority to say, I love Baba. That's what he meant. So then what do you do?
Most
Well, of course, Erich would tell us, if you love somebody, you don't have to even think about remembering them, you do. In our house, we have pictures of Baba everywhere. If somebody visits us, they're uncomfortable, you know where the door is. You know, you don't care. That's the way it is. We have Baba is our master. We take his word seriously. In that sense, he's given us a precious opportunity in this lifetime to focus on him. Our object is to be free from the distractions from that. The easiest thing to do, we don't have to create systems and techniques. Breathe his name, more than that, that's all. If you can't remember him, develop the habit, breathing his name. Very simply, inhale Ba, exhale Ba. Not audibly, it just becomes a habit. Simple thing.
Thank you, Peter. Do you want to say something?
Talking about backbiting, there's a first exercise I'm doing going towards Meher Baba. And I consciously ask myself, must I say this sentence? Do I have to say this? Is it very necessary? And I said, no. I can be at peace with myself. I don't have to say it.
Stay.
It's like backbiting. I don't need to say it, so I keep quiet. So it's a conscious decision of yours whether to backbite or not to backbite. If you say, no, it's not necessary, I can do without it. Good.
Before I take a question from the audience, I didn't get a chance to narrate this little story, but in March of 1965, when I went to see Meher Baba in Pune at Guru Prasad, in the morning I spent time with him, and then in the afternoon he had opened up for volunteers. It was a volunteers, those who had volunteered for the Savas program, only those people were invited with their families in the main room. So I was not a volunteer, so I sat in the veranda, and all the volunteers were inside in the main room with Baba. And suddenly Erich popped his head out, and Baba must have asked him, is anybody sitting outside? So he says, yes, Baba, Noshirwan is sitting outside. So he says, ask him to come in. So when I come to the main door, I see that every inch of space in the Guru Prasad main hall had been taken. There was not a single spot available for me to sit, except at Baba's feet. So I gingerly tiptoed over people, and I sat with my lower back against his leg, and sat there, and I was facing the audience while Baba was sitting there on a low sofa. And so Baba was asking questions of various different people, you know, how's your family, how's your children, this, that, and the other, and people were standing up and introducing each other and so forth. I was a volunteer doctor, so and so forth. And then the meeting came to an end, and Baba said, now we'll have the Aarti, the Hindi Aarti. And I know the Hindi Aarti fairly well, so I was also singing the Aarti, and as I sang the first few words, I burst out crying uncontrollably. And I could suddenly see Erich's face come in front of me, and I could see Baba's hand saying no to Erich, but to let me sob. And at that moment, I looked back and I saw Meher Baba's entire body getting larger and larger, and I was overflowing with tremendous amount of love. My heart was bursting with love. I could not control myself. And then at one point, Baba just put his hand on my shoulder, and it was as if a faucet had turned off, and I stopped crying. But what happened at that moment is my heart opened up to Meher Baba's love, because all along, all the years that I was with Meher Baba, it was always the intellect. It was like a millstone around my neck. And, I was reading Kierkegaard and Kant, and it was always from a philosophical standpoint that I was looking at Meher Baba. And this incident was a seminal moment in my life when Meher Baba absolutely opened my heart to his love. And I can still feel that day and this incident that happened with Meher Baba. So I'd open up the audience to a question.
This is a question for Alan Cohen.
Yes.
Alan was talking about the 60s yesterday, and the 60s were a time where it seemed like there was a lot of spiritual energy, people coming to Baba. Now it seems like it's kind of more of a trickle. So I'd like, maybe his point of view of why that is at this time, or what, how he sees that.
You want to repeat the question?
I'll repeat the question. Ken has directed it to Alan Cohen. He said, you spoke yesterday about the tremendous energy in the 60s when so many large number of people came to Baba. But now it seems that it's a trickle. And how do you feel about that change in periods of people coming to Baba? There was a flood of people coming at that time, but now there's a trickle.
Well, it's certainly true. It was a very exciting time. And remember, in certain sense, at that time, Meher Baba was one of the few voices of Eastern mystical thought. Baba came on the scene just before all the gurus came out. I remember when it happened. It's when I had to give up my Baba button because the Maharaji had a button now, and the TM people had buttons. And what happened was that a lot of that energy was absorbed by our Western need for technology. And that is, what could you do to get a higher experience? Now, we were already fighting on the drug side, but then there was the whole other side. At this point, I think there are probably the same proportion of people coming to Baba. I've heard from India that things are really starting to ramp up. We've also, as you can see, a marvelous import of Baba lovers from India to America, which has, I think, made a very, very substantial difference. But remember, Baba is doing his work through, and this is the Mastery of Servitude plaque, he's working on all the religious systems. And he said he's only come for the few that are really dedicated to him. Now, it is true that Baba said there's certain work he can only do through those who are connected with him. And we don't even know what it is. I mean, this whole room could be people on the plains who are veiled. Who knows? Baba wouldn't tell you if you did. But that's special. But there's other work to be done. And really what I'm seeing now is more and more people resonating with Baba's orientation. His theory, for example, half of Americans now believe in reincarnation, according to a recent survey, and the consonance and congruence of mystical spiritual thought, where Baba is now not nearly as controversial as he was before. And that's kind of part of the frustration for our missionary instinct. They'll say, he's good, yeah, Meher Baba's good, yeah. well, yeah, he's good. But they don't necessarily zap into the same place. So, Baba did certainly predict that the world would start coming to him at a certain point. In the U.S., I would say we're going to look for another new generation of interested people. But you're going to see Baba's influence in many ways. I just read a piece where, back I think it was in Bangalore, one of the mandali came in furious that there was some guy who had stolen Baba's writings as his own and was teaching them. And Baba said, don't be irritated, that's fine. They're getting my message. Okay, it's not for me. So he's encouraging this divinization and revolution of spirituality insofar as anyone can handle it. It's kind of, in a sense, when the silence breaks, those who can absorb more of it can do it. And they can even do it in their own systems now. So I'm pretty optimistic we'll fill this hall in another 5 years for the 55th anniversary.
I'd like to add a little bit to Alan's answer. I was once invited to speak at the Transpersonal Psychology Conference in Bombay, but I was there as a delegate and reporting for the Times of India. So I was wearing two hats. So as a reporter, I was in a room full of journalists, and Swami Muktananda, some of you may have heard that name. He was a spiritual master with a very large following all over the world, and today his disciple is Guru Mai, who lives in Fallsburg. So after he gave some introductory message, and then each one of us had to go say hello to Swami Muktananda and leave the room after we had all the questions and answers. And of course, Stanislav Grof was also in the room, and we ended up having a bit of an argument over drugs. So anyway, apart from that, so when my turn came to meet Swami Muktananda, now Guru Mai's name was Malti. She was his interpreter. So she was sitting next to him. I decided that I would bypass Malti and speak to Swami Muktananda directly in Hindi, because Swami Muktananda did not speak English. So I approached Swami Muktananda, did this, and I said, Swamiji, I'm a follower of Meher Baba. So he threw up his hands and he said, oh, Meher Baba, he is the ocean of love. He can take you from this shore to that shore. And I said, thank you, and I moved on. But I just wanted to let you know that spiritual masters who recognize Meher Baba have this to say.
Noshwan, you will love to know that last year at Meher Mount, when during Baba's birthday time, people from the town came up and said, that was a very big Baba birthday celebration you had here in Ojai. And people at Meher Mount said, what Baba birthday celebration? We had a small ceremony up here. So no, there were a lot of people. It was a big party in town. Turns out it was a Baba birthday party run by the Swami Muktananda people. And that before he died, he told them that Meher Baba was exactly who he said he was. And that group stops at Mehrabad, at least for one day, when they make their pilgrimage to Muktananda's place in India.
Soon after Muktananda dropped his body, he died, I was working at that time in Times of India. And ever so often, people would come and Muktananda followers and say, could you tell us how we can go to Mehrabad? Because Muktananda asked us to do so. Which surprised me, but they were, obviously, the master must have said at some point that you need to go to Mehrabad and bow down at Meher Baba's tomb. So this was an interesting sidelight. Is there, I thought you guys would be loaded with questions.
There was a lady in the back.
Yes, please.
She's coming up.
Okay. Alta.
I have 3 questions.
Could you please come closer, because 3 questions will be hard to hear.
Kushru.
Khusru quarters.
Is that the same as the place where the trust?
The sitting offices of Avatar Meher Baba Trust,
That's the
named
same-
Meher Nazar, same place.
Alan, did you meet Baba?
The question is, Alan, did you meet Meher Baba?
I met Meher Baba with Jimmy in the tomb on the 6th day after Baba dropped the body.
And then, Gohir and Nachawan, when did you come to the United States? When, to live here?
To live here.
Her question is, when did Gohar and Noshirwan come to the United States to live here?
I came in 1974 after I was married to my husband, Darius, or better known as Danny. 1974.
My wife and I, along with our son Merab, we came to the United States to live here in 1983. But we've been coming over a period of time since the 70s to visit the United States. But to live here permanently, we came in 1983.
Peter, they asked Peter a question, so people may not have heard that.
Okay, the question they asked Peter, Alta asked Peter was, is Kushru quarters the same as where the trust is located? And Peter said yes, also known as Meher Nazar, that place. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question for Gohir
Yes.
about Minu's using the phrase Parvatigar Meher Baba rather than Avatar Meher Baba. And I was wondering if you could say something about the history of that.
His question is that yesterday Gohar mentioned at the end of her talk, she said that Minu often used the expression Parvardigar Meher Baba. And the question from Richard is, why would he not say Avatar Meher Baba and instead say Parvardigar Meher Baba?
I'm not entirely sure what the correct answer to your question is, but I believe Parvardigar, well, Avatar is the highest of the high. Parvardigar is all-pervading, I believe, I think. So with that, Dad was always one to go for the ultimate in everything. I mean, Dad I term him as a Baba fanatic. I mean, literally. So everything was always to the extreme where Baba was concerned. So Avatar was fine, okay, good enough. Parvardigar. So, and always with lot of oomph.
One moment. The repentance prayer, when it was originally written, and I still read those 3 lines, 4 lines, before the repentance prayer. Today, the repentance prayers, we repent, O God, most merciful. But before that, there were 3 lines, La ilaha illallah, O God, Father in heaven. Then we repent, O God. But those lines have been dropped. But growing up as a child, when the repentance prayer came out, we always said this before we said the repentance prayer. La ilaha illallah, O God, Father in heaven. Meaning the name of God, it starts off, God, Father in heaven. But those 2 lines were later on dropped. Yes, you had a question?
Gohir, people told me once that your dad used to plant secret messages to Baba under the cushions of the furniture. Could you tell that story?
His question is that, addressed to Gohar, that he believes that Minu Kharas, Gohar's father, used to plant secret messages in different parts of the furniture to ask Baba. Is that what you asked? Yes.
Yeah. Again, I sort of vaguely remember him doing that or speaking about that, especially when he would be near Baba or around him and then, hide things under people's furniture, belongings, whatever, so that when he left, that if they would find it, then it would again come to Baba's attention, and hence Minu Kharas would be again in front of his, in his presence, if you will. So yeah, he had a quaint habit of doing that a lot. Yes.
Yes, you had a question.
Yes, this is for anyone, and I'm just wondering what you might say about the current state of the Kali Yuga.
Current state of the Kali Yuga.
Her question is to everyone, what would you say about the current state of the Kali Yuga?
Well, I'll say what I see is that, and we look at American politics this year, the word I think of is catharsis. Catharsis is necessary. It's the first requisite for spirituality. It has to come out. It will come out. All of these things were done by Baba in his lifetime. His work was released when he dropped his body. That, through his own compassion, is taking time to manifest. It is his compassion for humanity that it doesn't happen more quickly. And it will take some time. It has to happen. There will be a lot, according to what Baba has explained, there will be a lot of suffering. Baba used different analogies. One of the analogies he used was that his work was like Ram pulling the arrow back, and when he dropped his body, the arrow, his work, was released. That arrow has not landed yet, but it flies through the air. Some people hear it immediately when it's released. They hear the arrow going by, and those are the people who are drawn to him. He used that analogy of the commander on the battlefield. And in his final days, he said, I'm like a wounded commander on the battlefield, mortally wounded, stumbling to certain death. But I see some ants crawling there before me, and my compassion for the ants is that I struggle a few more steps before I drop. And Erich has explained to us that those few steps, Baba explained, was what? Those ants were truth-loving humanity. No connection necessarily to some deep spiritual root, but at least for truth. For them, their motive was right. Baba has extended this whole thing. And we're seeing this kind of lingering catharsis. That's my opinion.
Well, let me talk about the same issue. We all know, and I'm not making a new theory, that when five perfect masters cannot handle the spiritual situation universally, that is when they invoke avatar to come and take over. So that is when the Kali Yuga comes into place. When they themselves, five of them, God realized souls, cannot handle it, they invoke the avatar to come and take over. But this is a yuga. You yourself said Kali Yuga, so it's a yuga. Yuga does not end like this. And when an avatar comes, he works not during his lifetime, for a lifetime, but he works for 700 to 1400 years. He draws this blueprint not for this 19 so and so to 2000 so. He works for the full 1400 years, 700, 1400 years, till the next avatar comes over. So he has done his work. He has done his groundwork. He has done his work. This Kali Yuga will be replaced by Meher Yuga. That's my take.
I think the Kali Yuga has seen its better days. Although it dies hard, if you compare this with 600 or 700 years ago, man, we are grooving. We're seeing a lot of positive things happen in the world in terms of health, in terms of poverty, in terms of people reacting now to the catharsis. In other words, it's a sign of something good if people are understanding that bad things could be happening. And there's kind of a reaction now against inhumanity to men that we really haven't seen for a long time. I think we'll have enough challenges to keep us busy as a society and culture, but I think good times are coming.
Did you have anything? No. It's okay. I'll go back to a little story that happened in Baba's presence. I was, of course, not there, but Baba was giving darshan to a small group of people, and there was one lady who came in with a little baby, and she was sitting there in Baba's presence. This is in Mirazad Mandli Hall, and this little baby would keep crawling, and Baba would keep an eye on the baby and then tell the mother, you know, the baby would crawl to the edge, to the ledge, and then the mother would immediately, Baba would point out to her that it's about to cross over the ledge and pull the baby back. And again, the baby would again start crawling, and every time the mother pulled the baby back, the baby would start crying, and the mother would have to go out. And Baba took this opportunity of giving this little an example. He said, I have taken birth as the avatar in this avatar of the age. And what my understanding is that he was localizing Kali Yuga, in which I take birth in this avataric age as the avatar, and I give you the freedom to crawl. And the moment, as long as you're crawling around and living your life, you're happy and you're cheerful. But when you're about to go over the ledge, over the precipice, I pull you back and you start crying and shrieking. And that is what our life is going to be in the Kali Yuga. It's going to be where he'll take us right to the precipice, but pull us back. And that is the role of the avatar. He takes you right to the precipice and pulls you back. Another little example I'll give you is, again, in this meeting in 1965, I was sitting in Baba's presence and there were a group of other people. Suddenly, one member of the Sattha family, his name was Nasirwan Sattha, raised his little finger. He's an older man, raised his finger. Baba says, what is it? He said, he stood up and he said, Baba, you have said that you will not break your silence. And Baba, when did I say that? and then, so Baba then went on to say, and this, I was present to hear this, I will break my silence in your hearts. So my strong belief, and you may completely disagree with me, is that Meher Baba's dropping of his body was the breaking of his silence and the beginning of his manifestation. Otherwise, all of you would not be sitting in this room today. Another question? Yes?
What does each of you do to distinguish between Baba's will and the voice of your ego?
Now the questions are getting tougher and tougher. The question is, in essence, what you would like to know is, how do each one of us differentiate between Baba's will and your will, or equal to your ego, or your... So...
Well, when things go wrong and I do bad things, I say it's Baba's will. Good one, good one.
And since I begin the day and end the day with Baba, then there you go. There's your answer again. It's his will. No, but...
This group has gotten off very easy with that question. It's kind of more what's the difference between Baba's wish and what your ego's saying. And it's quite true. After the fact, it's his will, isn't it? And you've learned a lesson or not. So I want to reframe that question for you. I don't want to answer it, but I want to reframe it.
My answer to your question would be that it's a lifelong process. We come with our sanskaric debris, we come with our ego and our very strong will. But as we go along the path towards God realization, which is the destiny of every single human being, we have to practice the habit of accepting God's will at the end of the day. Make every effort, and this has been a practice that I have tried to do in my own life. If there is something that I really want to achieve, which also seems impossible to achieve, I make every single effort that I can. And then if it works, I know it's Baba's will. But if it does not work, I have learned to accept it as Baba's will as well. I mean, with a lot of screaming and shouting, but I've learned to accept it as Baba will. So it's the matter of acceptance of Baba's will. That's the practice that we all have to go through in our lifetime. Do I see a hand raised? Yes.
In the book that was on the table, the way I glanced at it just briefly, about Baba on science. So I may have gotten this wrong pretty quick. But I got the impression that in the secret book, there's information about the future sciences of the science. So this question is just a kind of a mining question for you guys. Most people think that we answer that by saying that in the nothing in the everything, he covered the subject of the secret book. But you guys may know something that I have not heard about. So really, it's an open question. Is there anything about the secret book that you guys know that maybe the rest of us don't know?
If it's not in the glow, it can't be there.
Well, the question is that, is there anything that you guys know about the secret book? Well, Alan is completely right. We had a big story about the book in one of the issues of the Glow. It was an interview that I conducted with Iraj Jasawala about the book. But before I did that, in 1969, when Baba dropped his body and I was living in Mirazad for quite some time, I had asked Adi Irani, because Adi Irani had handled the book over a period of time. And he gave me some glimpses about the first chapter was about the avatar and so forth, and that there was a chart that he carried, which he carried with Baba into Europe. But In God's Hand, that was published by Beloved Archive some years back, does carry some of the information that is in that book. And over the years, Infinite Intelligence, for example, has carried a bit of material from that book that Baba wrote in 1925. But the entire book is, we've traced the sequence of how the book traveled from place to place, from bank to bank, and from locker to locker, and all this information is given in the Glow. But we don't know where the book is now. If it was available, Beloved Archives would publish it.
For sure. For sure.
The only thing I can tell you is that over the years I've been doing some research on Baba and Gandhi meetings, and we'll eventually be doing a book on that subject. Gandhi read Baba's first few chapters of Baba's book, and he found the information very, very revealing. And that's what he told his secretary, Mahadev Desai, as to how he respected Meher Baba for the information that was contained in that book. So obviously, there must be something of tremendous spiritual value and importance in that book. And time alone will reveal. The fact of the matter is that the book exists, even if there are some naysayers around here. But the fact of the matter is that the book exists, and that at the right time it will come out, because several people have read it and had the opportunity of carrying it on Meher Baba's travels.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yes,
can I
can I? Yeah.
Talking about this book, if there's one person on earth who's so obsessed about this book, it's Jimmy Khan. Trust me. And I'm very serious about it. And I pray at night. May not be every night, but I pray at night. And I visit so many places at Mehrabad and Merazad. And one of the places I visit is the Rahuri cabin. And my only agenda in the Rahuri cabin is to ask Baba, where is that book? I'm serious. I ask Baba, where is that book? And I tell him, Baba, the whole of the mandali is gone. Baba, the whole of the mandali is gone. My mom is gone. I'm about to go. Will I read this book? Will I ever read this book? Will I get a hand on this book? Where is your book? And I'm quite obsessed about this book, truly, very honestly. And I tell Baba that even I will go without reading this book. And finally the answer is, Jimmy, why are you worried? When the time is right, the book will surface by itself. It will come. The time is not right. So that's the answer I get. Maybe I'll go without reading the book.
One moment.
I don't have a question, but I have a statement.
Yes. Do you want to make it on the... Danny Mohammed has a statement to make.
If you don't mind, I came to know of Baba through osmosis, through my wife and through Minu. And some lady here asked a question about ego and the Lord's will. Fantastic question. And if I may address that, please. For those who don't know, I'm a surgeon. And surgeons have egos that are so big they have a tough time to go through the door. And there have been numerous occasions in my lifetime where you've done surgery, you come to a point where you think you're going to lose the patient, you got absolutely nothing, you used all your talents, every bit of knowledge and medicine that you've used, and you're going to lose it. And your hands are right in there. In that moment, you close your eyes and ask and say, give me a hand. I don't have anything more to go on. And believe me, things go well. I have no idea where that comes from. But there is something which the will is far stronger than your ego. That's all I got to add.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. One moment.
Baba did say that over and over to the Mandali and Mandali Hall at Merazad, that he was giving Bao 10% of the book.
I recommend it.
That's good book. Good.
Long time ago.
May I say a few, just some historic information about,
Please.
give a little context.
Please.
Baba started writing that book 3 days after he began silence in the Jopti in 1925. The Mandali came to know about that, and it was a peculiar time because the Mandali thought Baba was going to become like a monk in a cave and withdraw from all of the activities that he was taking part in before he started silence, but instead he started some more activities, and one of those things was the writing of this book. Simultaneously, he began to give more discourses through writing at that time to the Mandali and the growing crowds of people who would come, especially on Thursdays and Sundays, to Mehrabad to see him. He would generally give these discourses by writing on the slates. They had the Hazrat Babajan school operating then. There was one boy whose job it was to carry around this bag of slates with chalk, keep the slates clean, keep handing Baba clean slates whenever he had something to say or give a discourse. What drew people specifically to these discourses in large numbers, especially among the Mandali and the growing colony of residents at Mehrabad, is that Thursday in Arangaon, Kaka Shahane, one of the Mandali there, would give them tea with milk in it. So they could have as much tea with milk in it as they wanted, and they would be all revved up on the caffeine, and Baba would give these explanations. One day, Baba used paper and a pencil, and it's either because one of two reasons or both reasons. The boy who was carrying the sack of slates was ill and nobody else took that, but they also had paper available. And it was available because they had recently had examinations for the schoolboys. That date, according to what I can find from the combined diary records, most likely was August 20th from the description of it. That was the day that Baba wrote this discourse, which we have now as a book in the form of In God's Hand. It wasn't written as a manuscript. It was written as a discourse during that time. It was one day's discourse. Can you imagine 39 pages of a handwritten discourse? And if you look at it closely, you know, you can understand that this is the way a person giving a lecture through writing would do it. He's not going to repeat things. Baba had the habit of asking anybody who was interested, hundreds of people sometimes, did you all get it? Did you all get it? Baba, about that. Now, he's not going to write the whole thing again. He's going to draw a circle here, an arrow here, cross this out, bracket this, do something like that, so that it would be repeated, read. But why this is so valuable, this is the only example of Baba communicating through writing and what content he was giving us during that very rare period, 17 months while he communicated by writing. Later on, during the end of that period, he wrote that book from the time he started silence to the end of the first long stay, and just into 1927, before he stopped writing. He said the book will have even greater spiritual impact because he had stopped writing. Somebody asked Baba in 1926 later, then they said, Baba, these explanations you have given are just fantastic. We have to publish it. Baba said, it's okay, it's being saved, but this stuff is nothing compared to what I've written in the book. And we've come to know that that material he was referring to was the intelligence notebooks that were done at that time. Later on, 1928, somebody, maybe it was Rustam, who advised Baba, just give humanity your book. Then everybody will know and they'll get it, and there won't be a problem anymore. Baba said, what will they get? What will they understand? The book is not the real thing, it's the preparation. Humanity must be inwardly prepared to receive that. And that's what has to happen first. So when I add the whole thing up and look at the big picture, to me, I say, it is not, even if we ever see that information, Baba has done it. So the inner preparation has already been done. Regardless of when every individual, in their own way, in their own time, comes to that point, it has been done. It will, if it comes out, fine. If it doesn't, the real thing has already been done by him. The fact that he put himself fasting in silence in a room writing this thing, and he gradually moved to 3 other different places in Mehrabad to finish that work, that's the real thing.
Yes.
In the event you find the book, and in the event publish it, you get a 10% discount.
I might even I would increase it to 20.
Yesterday you talked about coincidences.
Yeah.
Was that coincidences?
Oh.
He's roasting you.
Shame on him.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh,
don't give
it's
him
a bit
credit.
of a funny question. He wants to know about, he talked about coincidences yesterday. He wanted to know if it was Cohen incidences. I don't think he wants to answer it, do you? No. Any more questions? We still have 25 minutes of Q&A. Yes, ma'am.
How about the thing that you started with, which had to do with dealing with conflicts and harmony in groups? And I would really love to hear the panelists just address that. I mean, I've been on a number of involvement awards and different
Yes.
experiences where there's tremendous conflict.
Evie's question is something that I had started off this panel Q&A. She wants to know the panelists' thoughts on conflicts in groups and how do we resolve them, how do we look at them, and how do they impact the Baba lovers in these groups. So can we have some insight into, apart from the fact that these conflicts are ego-driven?
I like mud wrestling myself. Actually, you know, Nash, you mentioned the incidents at Mehrabad Baba with the two orders. That was a great lesson for them in two ways. And the first thing was that love supersedes reverence. And the second thing was obedience is more important than anything, obedience to the master. So at that time, Baba made them all get along with each other and coexist. And through the years, many of them actually even became friends. And then at that point, Baba made them fight with each other. But that was a different thing. How he would want them, and I'm saying seriously, he would want one to confront the other. Oh, you're a good friend. Tell him about that. What about? And they wouldn't even have to know, they wouldn't have to be explained anything by Baba. They would know he wanted it, and they should do it. Pendu after Padri. Any kind of incident. And the other one would know Baba's behind it, and they would keep their mouth shut and take it. It was Baba's thing. There was always the long-going dramedy between Baidul and Kaka that went on for years, you know, and that was their name. Now, it's not that we take that as an example. No, we weren't those intimate mandali. We don't behave like that. Baba was using their idiosyncrasies, the end of their existence, in his own work. They're circle people. That all gets used up as archetypes. That's a different thing. Baba had said, if you live with me, it's a different issue. You may be made to do any kind of thing, but equipoise, he was always stressing that, spiritual equipoise. Easier said than done. Easier said than done.
Talking about groups, I'm on the board of the Bombay Center. I'm also the treasurer, and we are normally 7 of us at the board meetings. Very democratic. Our president, Hosang Darachandji, is very, very noble man, very democratic, very open, and open to all. He doesn't use his casting vote, not that he has. But at the end of the day, it's not that on all matters, all of us agree. It's not human to agree to every issue and all of us agreeing to X issue or Y issue. So we do have difference in thinking, thoughts, the way we look at it. We very honestly, very candidly put it across, and eventually we see where the consensus flows. And we understand that whatever we do as a board, we are eventually doing for beloved Baba. So there are no ego clashes at the Bombay Center. We're very open, we are very amenable to what the other's point of view is. And finally we decide what almost the majority decides, by and large, always. So you got to decide, if you are a group and if you are on the board, whether you want your ego to pervade or you want to work for beloved Baba as a group. If the answer is no, Baba is much, much ahead of me, I want to step aside my ego, let's work amicably, let's work for him. If we have this mental process, there'll be no ego clashes.
There's the long history and an interesting future of group conflict in the Baba world. And sometimes Baba, in fact, would encourage it, especially in the US. He would have a lot of fun watching and setting up situations where people had to learn the lessons of harmony and love the hard way. They were all kind of teaching moments, and it was also very, very important that the groups evolved and moved towards a loving respect for everyone. Now, you know, there was a time when I said to myself for the future, humanity cannot possibly screw up Meher Baba's message like all the other religions. They can't do it. He wrote in English. He explained everything. All the principles are there. He's the avatar. He made no exclusion. But one must respect the power of the ego. And what could be possible, and you would see it, and it's usually an intellectual kind of orientation. Well, and you can kind of feel it in the ego strike. Well, I know what Baba said about that, and this is how it should be. It's a very, very human tendency, but it's also a way that Baba uses to start to chip away at the ego, because that will never work. And I think we've got a shot at it for the future. I think we do, because the principles are so incredibly important. And whenever somebody comes up with a new theory of Baba interpretation, and they really feel strongly about it, or at a group meeting, I think we should do it this way or that way. The question that I always ask is, and if you're right or wrong, how will you live your life differently? Right? What idea, what conception, what position do you feel so strongly about that if it were correct or if it were wrong, you would live your life differently? And there really isn't much. I mean, Baba kind of laid it out. It's pretty straightforward. Love him, love God and everyone else. Right? You do that, it's okay. You're going to win. You may lose an intellectual argument, but you'll be fine.
Thank you. I think what Meher Baba means by real work, his discourse explains it all in great detail. But my observation of groups over many, many years is that the conflicts in the East, particularly in India, are different from the conflicts in the West, in USA and other countries. In the East or in India, the conflicts are primarily, or in most cases, along religious lines. One group of one religion dominating the committee or the board of directors, or another group dominating. And the underlying theme in all this is selfishness. Selfishness. So over here, it's a strength of personalities. Dominance, dictatorial powers, and unyielding stance. That's what it is in the West. In the East as well, there are strong personalities who will assert their views and are unyielding. But over the years, I have seen, and in the correspondence that I've seen from Meher Baba while he was in the body, is that in India it was mainly along religious lines that there were divisions and conflicts in groups. Or in language, religious languages, that one state dominates the other state in that particular group. I'm not naming names because it's pretty it happens everywhere. But that's what the conflict is. And once they understand that Meher Baba's work supersedes everything else, all divisions, it all dissolves into doing Meher Baba's work. I'll give you one particular example. In the Dehradun Center, which is where I was there, they wanted to install a statue of Meher Baba. My father, who was an active member of the group, and my mother, and a group of others, were vehemently opposed to the statue. And there was another group that was extremely in favor of the statue. So one day, uninvited, my father lands up at Meherazad. And he lands up at Khushru quarters, and Ari is furious to see him. Don't you know that Meher Baba does not give darshan? And so my father said, I'll go away. If Baba says he cannot see me, I'll go away. Just send him a message. So a message goes to Baba that Keki Nalawala is here. And Baba says, okay, let him come for 5 minutes. So Baba says, what's going on in Dehradun? What's this conflict about statues in Dehradun? So my father says, Baba, my view is that there should be no statue in Dehradun. So Baba says, that is my view as well, that there should be no statues. But what do? I relent because of the love of my lovers. Now in Kovur Center, which is one of the first centers that had a statue of Meher Baba, some of, these statues are not always very attractive looking. They don't represent Meher Baba very well. So, as much as a photograph would. So, when the first statue came up in Kovur, Baba was opposed to it. But then there was such a hue and cry in the community that Baba said, okay, have a statue, but have these messages alongside at the center. I seem to remember one message that said, rites, rituals, and ceremonies cover me. Pure love reveals me. So that was just one, but there were several messages that Baba gave to be inscribed outside the center where there's a statue. Now, of course, there are statues all over India in every center, and it's there. But Baba did say to my father that he was not in favor of statues, and that, so those are the kind of conflicts that that happened. Now, faith. Finally, the pro-statue people won, and there was a statue in Merdham. So what happens is that during Aarti, they do the Aarti, they do the bhajans, they do the kirtans, and then it's the time for bhog. And what is bhog? They take a little bit of the sweet meat and stick it on Meher Baba's mouth of the statue. And they all wait in bated breath to see if any of that thing falls down. If it falls, Baba has accepted their offering. If it doesn't fall, they wait as long as it falls. So this is again a matter of faith, ritual, ceremony, so some part of them feel that this is too excessive, this is a little bit too much, over the top, and the other feel that, well, it's our faith, that's how we express our devotion. And I am of the belief that if you want to stand on your head and worship God, that is fine. No one can tell you how to follow God. Oh, every human being's path is an individual path to God. And how you relate to God is your personal relationship. So when I said yesterday that you should go out and tell people that Meher Baba is God in human form, or Meher Baba is the avatar, you are not an intermediary. You are just a communicator. It's between that individual and Meher Baba eventually. You're not a proselytizer or a propagator. And that's what my belief is. So what Meher Baba means by real work, which is a major chapter in the new book, Teachings, gives you an insight into what Meher Baba means. And Meher Baba did not hesitate to write back to the center heads to say that there is no need for you to do any work, shut the center down, but I want complete harmony. That was his message. If you want to do work for me, it has to be harmonious and in complete harmony, not in disharmony or in conflict. Yes, Roberta. Sure.
It's on? Yeah, it's on. So this is not necessarily a question, but a comment on the issue of how to respond to dissent and different points of view within within your community of faith. So I was reminded, Nash, by your story of a time when, well, first of all, a little background, I'm an old PK. What that means is preacher's kid. So my father was a Christian minister. And growing up, you see all kinds of hypocrisy when you grow up within any kind of religious community. So he was ill, and people had brought these lovely cards for him, and it was all lovely faith-based talk. And at this time in my life, I was really I was done with hypocrisy. And I was critical and very intellectual about all these different things about faith. And I said, how can you stand this blah, blah, blah stuff? All these little platitudes that people are sending you. How can you even, think that that's what God is? Because you're different from that. And he looked at me and he said, dear, you have to learn everybody's language. You will never understand unless you can listen from someone else's experience and someone else's language. So for the people who needed the statue, there was a story, and a meaningful story, and a respectful story for them. They had a language. And the people who didn't need the statue, they had a story and a language of devotion and a language that's different from the others. So I'm still a Christian minister, I'm retired, and I love coming to Baba gatherings with my husband. And I hope you'll listen to each other's language. Listen to each other's experience, because every experience is full of truth, and none of us have all of it. You've got to put all the pieces together. Anyway, that's just my comment.
Yes. No, I'm just asking her. Is it till 3:30? 3:30 to 5. Yes, Susan. You need the mic?
So, somewhat of a revelation for me this year has been finding quotes that support Baba wanting us to be really happy in our lives. I mean, really happy and going for what we feel are the highest goals for us and the people around us. But so much of my earlier understanding of the Mandali's life, or perhaps the things you said here, have been how it's so much suffering and grinding of the ego. And that is true. That does definitely still happen. But I just wanted to hear you comment on what I feel is more of a discovery, that when Baba says, don't worry, be happy, I will help you, those words are taking meaning in my life in the present and more concretely, not just based on stories, although the stories are so informative that someone will say something and I'll think of a story, and that's just such a wonderful thing. But to discover that each day in my life, how Baba is there to help me, literally, and is showing up in ways if I look for him, is very exciting. And that brings happiness. So I would like to, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, or whatever. Any comment?
I'll start off with a comment and then two comments. One is, Meher Baba said, hold on to my daman with both hands, because one hand might slip, you'll have held on to the other hand. Is there a garment that we see today? Is Meher Baba's, can you hold on to a garment? Is there a garment anywhere? No, there is no garment. What is meaningful about that, what Meher Baba is asking us, is take refuge in me completely. Take refuge in me. Have faith in me and take refuge in me. And that we don't. And my second comment is that unhappiness, you said that you really feel that Baba wants us to be happy. But you can't be happy if you have so many expectations from others. We're constantly expecting from others. And when it does not happen, we are unhappy. And that is what we have to consciously diminish in our own lives, to have more expectation from God and less expectation from human beings. And as Erich would say, ask of Meher Baba. Because if you don't ask of Meher Baba, who are you going to ask? You have no one else to turn to. So when we say take refuge wholly and solely in Meher Baba, it is meaningful.
On a different note, you scan around, it's gone. Anyway, he was talking about the trickle and the numbers, and I've also been obsessed with numbers, so small numbers. But then eventually, as you grow and you understand, but by the way, couple of years earlier, Sridhar Kelkar, who was at the Bombay program, and Sridhar said that Baba once mentioned, which I never knew in the past, all these years. Someone asked Baba, you said thousands will come and hundreds of thousands will come, and Baba, we don't see them. I'm talking about Baba's time. And Baba said, very poignantly, he said, then that will be the crowds. Baba said, and those will be the crowds, not the lovers. He meant that. So we need to understand that, yeah, even I and every one of us are looking for big numbers. Let's understand that to understand the avatar's divinity is not the job of the numbers, not a job of big numbers. You have to spiritually traverse your distance a very long way, a very, very long way to accept and understand the avatar of the age. And those who first seated here, those who are Meher Baba lovers, please understand we have traversed a very, very long way on our path. That is why we are seated here. That is why we are Meher Baba lovers. That is why we accepted him in his lifetime. So it's not for the masses. It's not for the masses. It's for the classes, and we are the class.
Is there anyone else? We have 3 minutes more for our last question. If someone's got a question to ask.
Alan, did you have any comments as a psychologist?
Oh, just one of my most dear companions once said, "Live life lightly," and it's a question of attitude, Susan. You can have great suffering and yet have an attitude that is consistent with not worrying about it. So Baba is trying to get our consciousness to a level where we're not identifying with the ego, where we're not identifying necessarily with the physical body or the emotional sphere. And so he kind of, suffering is good for you, but you can still take it lightly.
Last question, if anyone has a question, or we'll then just wrap up this afternoon session. But if there is a question, feel free to ask for any comments or anything else. I'll take this opportunity. We have our musical program next, but before that, I'd like to thank each one of you for coming here and honoring our invitation to celebrate 50 years of the Glow. Thank you so much, and please stay on. Jai Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.